This is where we talk about languages and language learning and all sorts of other stuff, and we play games. This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time, and we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks. Perfect. Okay, 3 of 4.
El hospital
還元一級の先というのは、本当に誰も知らない字ばっかりでしょうね。私は Okay, we've leveled up and it is time to pick another language. Morfar är tröttare än vanligt. Maten är färdig. And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek. We're doing Greek when we get back. Ben neredeyse her gün okula giderim. Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is alfil. And that actually comes from Arabic. Fil. The same word fil as this. Meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant units somehow. Similarly, in Russian, the word for bishop is squab, and that also means elephant. This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time, and we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks. Ça, c'est ça, que c'est ça, non ça, c'est ça. Sol chi sa che nulla sa, ne sa più di chi ne sa. Ecco.
Bonjour et bienvenue à Hyperpolyglotting avec Élise. Moi, c'est Élise, traductrice, éditrice et écrivain avec 20 ans de travail. Et ça, c'est la transmission en direct ou en jeu des jeux, surtout GeoGuessr en dernier temps. Et parle des langues, de la linguistique, de l'acquisition des langues.
10-159. Haven't made a huge dent in it, but we're getting there. Okay, gonna do some Chinese now. Night. Night. Come on. Yen. Yo. 5. Ducks are drinking wine. Bambas. Bamba, okay, Bambas is duck. Okay, I have now leveled up. Let's see what the XP situation is now. 10,340 out of 12,500. And as always, viewers can choose my next language for me just with a follow and a $5 to my Patreon.
Sotto le frasche del capanno 4 gatti grossi stanno. Sotto 4 grossi sassi, 4 grossi e grassi gatti. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré, des généraux dégénérés. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré, des généraux dégénérés. Facile. Sì, ecco, la gente... è la cosa che mi dice la gente, sempre che scoprisce che quante lingue parlo, io sempre avevo l'impressione, diciamo, di che non era così, non era tan così, ma poi, dopo di aver visto qualche poliglota in YouTube, una delle cose che avevo scoperte era giustamente che la metodologia usata da quella gente poliglota che non avevo mai conosciuta prima, era più o meno la stessa metodologia che usavo io. I buy a computer or what? And here's another example. I like to point these out. For this word for or, what sounds vaguely like Hogun and the hok in Hogun in Korean or Waku in Japanese, and that appears it is the exact same kind of character.
Okay, let me see.
Un chasseur, sa chien chassé. Ses chassés sont son chien de chasse.
Der dicke Dach.
Okay, der dicke Dachdecker deckt dir dein Dach, drum dank dem dicken Dachdecker, dass der dicke Dachdecker dir dein Dach deckt. Hola y bienvenidos al directo de Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. Yo soy Elisa, traductora, escritora y editora y comunicadora social con más de 20 idiomas de trabajo. Y aquí vamos a estar jugando videojuegos, sobre todo GeoGuessr, y hablando de idioma, la mejor forma de aprenderlo y caleta más. Zwei Zwetschgenzweigen zwitscherten zwei tschechische Schwalben. Tres tristes tigres tragaban trigo en un trigal en tres tristes trastos. Oh, I see. This is Diche Ishai Fui, which means, do you want food? But, yeah, are you hungry? That kind of thing. How are the boys? Cocine da boy. Posso Milao. Pote. When is it? Proteine. Protopulo. In the designated chicken eating area, obviously. Okay, still 3 times I have to defeat him. And I don't have a whole lot of health left.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time. And we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Monsieur. Livre. Liwe, livre.
Bucks
Mustankissan paksut posket.
Матяе,
Ja.
Пиакс, Си, Високий, Матяе, Прочь, Интер, Кочки, А, Си,
Track 6.
Aspri petraxes aspri apton ilioxex asproteri. Aspri petraxes aspri apton ilioxex asproteri.
En coginio panas.
Oh boy.
Ferrad verda ferda vedri.
Hakab, Hefed, 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 Hek, Hek, Hek,
Саша по шоссе.
А Саша по шоссе несла сушку на счастье и сосала сушку. А Саша по шоссе несла сушку на счастье и сосала сушку.
Mwalimu,
Juma ni mwalimu mke.
Ирак чимав чипах чемп чавю ченчи чини. Чирак чимав чипа да, чирак чимав чипцах чемп чавю ченчи чини. Бакакит алшит. Хикрин. Бакакит алши хикрин. Alshi Krikrips. Oh, thanks to cat signs. Meow and the pictures of the fish. That's they were proud.
Sööpel. Kupu. Yrittävät. Uraista. Omena.
Are in the city center. And it's got some interesting aspects to it.
여자는 어느 나라에 있습니까? 여자는 어느 나라에 있습니까? 여자는 어느 나라에 있습니까?
Countries for living things.
兄の名前は
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time. And we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So, anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Lo que pasa es que bueno, la manera, y esto se ve en tantos lugares, no es cuestión regional, sino más bien de un problema fundamental de la pedagogía oficial de los idiomas extranjeros, y que la manera en que se enseñan en tantos lugares, en las clases, en el colegio, no tiene nada que ver con el estado actual de la investigación sobre lo que se llama adquisición de idioma.
Doesn't, you can try something else.
In fact, I would say often you really know you're getting it with languages if you can't really explain why something's right, but you just bloody well know it's right. Hi, and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. I am Elise, translator, editor, and writer with 20 working languages And this is where we talk about languages and language learning and all sorts of other stuff, and we play games. This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time. And we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks. Perfect. Okay, 3 of 4.
El hospital
還元一級の先というのは、本当に誰も知らない字ばっかりでしょうね。私は Okay, we've leveled up and it is time to pick another language. Mod för att tröttare än vanligt. Maten är färdig. And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek. We're doing Greek when we get back. Benedese had a beautiful day. Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is alfil. And that actually comes from Arabic. Fil. The same word fil as this. Meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant unit. Hello and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. I'm Elise, translator, writer, and editor with 20 working languages, and this is the stream where we're going to look at some language learning resources and advice. Some of it good, some of it not necessarily all that good. And we're going to just talk all about languages. If you have language questions that you'd like to ask, I'd love to hear them. If you'd like some advice on starting a new language that you're interested in, I'd love to hear that too. And all of this is also in aid of my crowdfunded translation project. For anyone who's not familiar, it is a project where I take public interest texts that have kind of fallen through the cracks. Stuff that there are definitely people who would be interested in reading it, but there's no single client who would actually cover the cost of translating it in a way that would make it viable for a translator like myself to actually work on it. So I crowdfund the cost and I make the resultant translations publicly available on my Patreon page. I'm currently working on 2 projects. One is the writings of Inessa Armand, Alexandra Kollontais' predecessor, which have been completely neglected by translators for over a century. And I'm trying to raise another $1,900 to cover the remaining cost of that one. I'm also working on selections from 1968 to 1973 from the historical archive of the truly legendary Chilean revolutionary magazine Punto Final, and I'm trying to raise another $445 to cover the current translation on that one. If you want to read the finished translations in either of the current projects, you can find them here. And if you'd like to make a donation, those are always very, very welcome, and just kind of help me stay afloat in what is one of the roughest times in recent memory to be a translator. Well, you can do that at the other link that I just dropped in chat. So let's get stuck in. How's everybody doing, chat? As I navigate to the window that actually has all my reaction stuff. Okay. So what do we got? Okay. So I thought we might get started with one of my favorite sources of not necessarily very good language learning advice. Evil Dia. He's got a video called Why I Fundamentally Disagree with ALG. And I say, let's have a look at it. As always, just let me know if I need to make any adjustments to the audio. I think I actually do, because that's a little bit quiet even on my end.
Back to the channel. Now, I want to talk about ALG, Automatic Language Growth Method, once again. I know, I constantly talk about...
Elmo is positioned in such a way that it looks like he is desperate to piss. Okay, so we're going to be talking about automatic language growth, which is one of various input-based methods, and one of the things that it's best known for is it basically radically rejects any kind of early output. Other input-based methods say don't force people to speak before they're actually ready. They will speak as soon as it comes to them. ALG says just don't speak, and so don't speak until you've had a certain amount of input. Hola, Jaspercint. Como vai? So, okay. And he does have a history of slagging off Dreaming Spanish. I have actually said some very good things about Dreaming Spanish in the past. It's actually in one of my irregularly updated series called The Good Stuff, because I think their input for learners is actually quality stuff, especially for Spanish, because it takes into account lots of regional variations. There are lots of interesting topics. It's very well done. Good, production values, good audio, which is really important. I don't strictly agree with the full-on ALG approach. And what I advocate on this stream is that you don't necessarily... Just because a resource is useful does not necessarily mean you should follow their instructions to the letter on exactly how to use it. Sometimes you will have a good resource, but the instructions on how to use it aren't great. And that's where we are. What? Elmo's stomach is pointy. Is he about to have a xenomorph pop out of him?
It on this channel, but as I've said many times before, it is a big part of my journey in learning Spanish via the Dreaming Spanish method, which is essentially just a wrapper for ALG. Now, one thing I am constantly accused of by, people who are not happy with my progress in Spanish using this method is that I do not actually understand ALG, or maybe I do understand it and I'm misrepresenting it, and I should...
and I would say, he does not understand input-based methods in general. I think that that he is accurately representing ALG in the sense that he is taking what Dreaming Spanish says about how to engage with their input and relying on it as advised, but I don't think that that's an accurate representation of input-based methods generally, and he does. Another thing that I disagree with from Dreaming Spanish is they basically say, avoid reading early. And I think reading early can be very useful.
Watch the speeches of David Long. For those who don't know, he basically took over, you can literally see it, it's over here, okay? So this is the guy who invented it. J. Marvin Brown. And if you just do a search on this very page, this is Wikipedia, okay? David Long. You can see that David Long is the coordinator for AUA, the Thai program, which is, he basically took over from Marvin Brown here. So we're going to sit down and we're going to watch the speeches of David Long about the ALG method, okay? And as you can see, I've already seen these.
Okay, so this is what he's going to do. Okay, this could be interesting because I've not seen these either.
ages ago because I clearly wanted to know what the method entailed, okay? So we're gonna do it together because I'm sick of being accused of not knowing this and not seeing the speeches or not covering what's actually said. So I figure if I do this in a video next...
And I would say, I mean, to be fair, he does not seem to be entirely... I mean, he definitely misrepresents input. And like, he does not really seem to understand that input itself is not a method. But again, I mean, being entirely fair to him, I think that he's pretty accurately representing the ALG approach as I understand it. Yeah, I mean, reading is actually kind of central to my approach to learning languages. Like, one of the things that I do that actually helps me get a very quick foundation is I find a translation in my target language of a book that I know practically by heart. Most of the time it is John Grisham's The Firm, just because that's a book that I know by heart and it tends to be fairly easy to find. And so I read that, and because I already know what's going on in the story, and I even to a great extent know the dialogue practically by heart, I can focus on how it's being said. It provides the context that allows me to understand the message despite not necessarily knowing the individual words or structures.
Next time I'm accused, which will probably be in the comment section of this very, very video that we're watching here together, I can just say, watch the video, bruh. I've reviewed them. My community...
I feel like this is a shout out.
Please reviewed them. We know what is required, okay? So let's begin. Now, we're going to smash our way through these. I'm going to go on, I think I've got it on 1.25. I may end up speeding it up a bit because obviously, you know, this is going to...
Okay.
...journey and also my experiences with learning other languages. But straight up, the first thing is when I watch this video, it reminds me of those military introduction videos where they'll be like, today we're going to talk about an IED. An IED will kill you. You know?
Actually, yeah, I see where he's getting that. It actually kind of reminds me of film strips that we would watch in school. The way he's standing and also just the image quality.
This type of thing.
Teaching Thai to foreigners who are coming to Thailand to live. The method's since been used teaching English, Chinese, Japanese, both to adults and to children, and has gained mild to great interest in some cases among people in the language learning community.
Okay, so obviously on this channel, it has gained great interest because it is a big part of one of the languages I'm learning.
Our program is unique because we focus on what adults do in order to acquire language. We focus on something completely different. In all recent research that we are familiar with in terms of brain research or linguistic research.
Now, he will reference linguistic research. If you are a linguist, please comment down below if he says something that is incorrect or is now out of date, okay? Because obviously this is an older video, and I'm not a linguist. I'm going to be responding based on
he is not. That is a very true statement. Evil Dia is not a linguist.
Actual experiences.
We find a tremendous consistency with our basic foundations and what we're learning to do.
This is 1.25 speed. How slow does this man talk?
Modern science. The foundations of ALG are very simple, in fact. We believe that adults, in fact, can learn like children. In the historical kind of reasoning of people has always been, adults can't learn anymore like children. The age of 4, 5, and 6 are the years when you have to gain a second or third language to read.
Yeah, and I mean, what he's talking about is something that you hear in the research about the critical period. And the thing is that the critical period keeps on getting pushed out because it turns out that one of the big differences between learning inside the critical period and learning outside the critical period is that learning outside the critical period tends to use less effective methods.
Be proficient. Dr. Brown, Dr. J. Marvin Brown, began ALG when he realized that through years and years of practice, no matter how much the adult practiced, no matter what the background of that adult was, they never could achieve anything close to what the young child could do. Naturally, people have seen this over and again, and we find out that the reasoning that comes from that, or the conclusions we've drawn from that as a society, is adults can't learn like children. Dr. Brown looked at that conclusion, and through the research of men like Stephen Krashen and many others, realized that there were some problems in that reasoning that adults can't learn like children.
Okay. I'm gonna.
The reasoning went something like this: here are children, young children gain a second language or a third language, they become proficient or very fluent in a short amount of time. Adults trying to gain that same language never become proficient and take as long as a lifetime and achieve much less results. The reasoning seemed to be faulty in that what children do and what adults do completely different things.
Yeah, okay. So that is that is exactly the insight. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because, I mean, it's interesting looking at what David Long is saying here. Actually, I mean, maybe I won't skip ahead. Screw it. We're going to be looking at David Long and Evil Dia. Maybe we'll just do this the whole time if it's good. I mean, I've got other stuff to look at, but I mean, if this is interesting and everybody's actually everybody's enjoying it, then perhaps this is what we'll be talking about the whole time. We'll see.
Based on the idea that adults need to do what children do in order to gain the same results in a second language acquisition. That's what ALG...
I mean, and let's just be clear, because like one of the things that you always hear is somebody will always jump in and be like, no, that's not it exactly, because it's adults are in a different situation and stuff like that. And yeah, this is a simplification, because the point is that the way that first languages are acquired during in like early childhood engages something that a lot of linguists refer to as the language acquisition device. They call it that because they're deliberately being non-committal about exactly what structures in the brain are engaged in which way. But the point is that it is stimulated by certain kinds of just optimized input and large amounts of it, as opposed to things like grammar drills and stuff like that. So when people like say, well, you're going to do it like small children do, what they're talking about is something much less literally meant than it's often taken by people who immediately try to refute it.
Is the ALG is the product of that determination.
So as you can see, they're basically trying to, with ALG, mimic how children learn. Now, I do want to inject a little bit here, okay, because I have...
And I would say ALG actually probably is the closest to a literal approach to that, in the way that output is like, artificially delayed. Not just you speak when you're ready, but you're not going to speak until a certain somewhat arbitrary number of hours of input has you've been exposed to. So it is actually closer to that, and same with avoiding the aspect of avoiding reading early on.
Learning Spanish via the website Dreaming Spanish. Okay, this service called Dreaming Spanish, and Dreaming Spanish says that they implement ALG. There is a slight difference between ALG and what Dreaming Spanish does. So
okay. Yeah, now I'm actually interested. I have not spent a lot of time looking at details on how Dreaming Spanish do it, because, I mean, again, my approach to these things and the approach that I advocate is very much a syncretic kind of approach, where it's like, you take this material that people have created, but you don't necessarily use it exactly the way they say. Because sometimes the best way to maximize the benefit you get out of it is not going to be following their instructions.
Even though I am testing ALG, I am testing it to the best of my abilities, because the way that they did it is it was in a classroom environment with teachers. So you would essentially be stuck in 100% almost crosstalk, although it's not really crosstalk because it'd be one teacher with multiple students, but the teachers would be engaging the students' interactions. Did it look like they were visually understanding as they were progressing through the program? Obviously, when we're more sitting here in front of a computer watching content, that doesn't work so much. So technically, everyone who does ALG not in a classroom environment is actually not doing ALG to the letter of the word. But most
Yeah. I mean, there are definite benefits to the classroom environment for input-based methods, specifically because you have somebody who can actually help provide the sort of context, observe, somebody who can observe when people really aren't getting something and jump in and provide the kind of context they need in order to make sense out of it, which is definitely quite beneficial.
proponents of ALG are not doing it in a classroom environment anyway, so we can't really use that to... I just want to put that out there. Because those who tell me I'm doing it wrong are probably doing it wrong themselves. If you're going strict by the way the system was designed.
The idea that adults and children do different things is not new. And if we look at a simple picture, and you just take this house, for example, everyone comes to language learning with some goals in mind. I think everyone wants to speak.
Yeah. I mean, and one of the problems, both in terms of people who are offering advice and language learning methods and stuff like that, and in terms of people who are trying to learn to speak, is often there is a lot of vagueness with regards to goals and stuff like that. Like, when people have words that they'll, fluency is one I keep on coming back to, because everybody says fluent, and everybody has like a mental image of what that might mean, but it isn't necessarily a very specific one, and you have to get really specific on these kinds of things.
Most people, or maybe not most, but many, want to learn to read and, of course, to write. If we look at these...
which is interesting, because I wonder why... I noticed this house has a really, really deep basement. So maybe the word understand or comprehend is going to be in the basement? Is that where he's going with it? Because that's the thing that jumps out at me immediately, and at a lot of discussions of this sort of thing as well, because we talk about speaking a language as just a shorthand for being proficient in it. But one of the really key aspects of that is actually understanding what people are saying around you in it.
These abilities. We say, yeah, we're learning a second language to speak, or to speak and read, or to read and write, or to write, or to speak and read and write. This is common everywhere. The idea that adults must try in order to be proficient, practice makes perfect is the old concept, if you will, is what most language programs are actually based on. Conversational English always seems to focus on how do you say it correctly. And it creates many, many problems for the student, not the least of which is a fear of saying it wrong.
Yeah, and there is actually solid research to back up the idea that correcting people, particularly in the context of speech, is actually counterproductive. Because it actually increases their stress and their nervousness, and can decrease their willingness to actually continue speaking.
The self-consciousness and the tenseness of that kind of a setting that we've often, if we've gone...
Yeah.
I just want to point out, that is an assumption about a student.
That isn't actually an assumption. That really is not an assumption. It is a thing. This is a thing that has been researched. I don't know when he did this. I'm judging from the image quality. I'm going to say probably he did this at a time when work actually looking at explicit error correction was certainly available, and challenging ideas like fossilization, which have been used in order to harass students with inline error correction for decades.
Not every student is fearful of saying things wrong. I'm not scared about saying things wrong. If I say something wrong, fine, whatever it is, okay? But that is a base assumption that's actually not true across the board.
I would agree that Evil Dia does not seem to be afraid of getting things wrong. If he was...
he would just live in constant terror. But the point is, there is actually solid research on this that says that jumping in and being like, no, tú andas con ese weón. No, tú, no hay que decir tú andamos. Dices tú andas. You say something like that. That actually that ends up being counterproductive, and that grammar acquisition often proceeds on its own through input and, interestingly, through pleasure reading in the target language.
Across the board, okay. Now, it probably applies to most students. They sit there, they're afraid of saying things wrong, but it's actually not true for all students, so it's just an interesting point.
That process of trying to learn the right thing and remember the right thing, then go out and practice the right thing is very strenuous. And in all of modern research and psychological research, no one claims that sort of stress is helpful in the learning process.
In fact, there is real research indicating that stress in the context of language acquisition is counterproductive. That a low stress environment is actually ideal.
So when we look at...
Also, I'm not sure if the science backs that up. I'm not a scientist, anything, okay, but I do know that people generally learn better under stress.
Actually, the science does back that up. There are contexts in which certain types of learning can be done better under stress, at least for some people. But when it comes to language acquisition, stress is not actually helpful. That is an important point.
I've seen plenty of articles about that, and I know through my experience in the military that a very, very stressful environment can actually cement things a lot better than just a more chill environment. This is why...
Yeah, but the thing is, it depends completely on what you're cementing. Because language acquisition is not the same thing as learning, learning how to field strip an M16 or something like that. It engages different types of learning.
People, when they go through like a super traumatic, stressful event, they never forget it. Like, they remember every detail of it. By the way,
that's also not necessarily true. Some people go through a super traumatic, super stressful event, and it takes years for them to actually recall it because it's too traumatic for them to actually remember.
And we need to traumatize our students, guys. I'm just saying that it's not black and white.
When we look at the goal, it's important that we understand how to achieve the goal we're seeking to achieve. If you ask a writer, how do I become a very good writer? Everywhere in the world, the writer would say, read a lot. So here we have a case where input...
Yeah, exactly. Stress and anxiety are bad for language learning. There is a difference, I think, between anxiety and stress, but both of them are bad for language acquisition. Like, both of them are things that you're trying to minimize in the language acquisition context.
Produces output. Is it possible that speaking is the output and the input is something, perhaps in this case, below ground, that we fail to look at? Everyone talks about the listening ability. We want to submit that understanding.
Okay, this is indeed where he was going. I was wondering, because comprehension in this context is rather... Clearly, that was going to be a significant omission, because it's also very central to approaches like this.
Is the key element of input that must be gained
Bonjour.
to speak well. Our program of...
Now, I don't disagree with this. And
the thing is, he talks about this, it's interesting. On the one hand, he'll say, I'm not a scientist, but on the other hand, he,
talks about like agreeing or disagreeing with the results of scientific research as if that meant anything, when he himself points out he doesn't actually know the research.
In fact, I'm pretty sure most modern ways of learning are based around this. Like, if you're looking at...
Yes, actually, it's called comprehensible input. This is very central to all effective methods. I mean, this is wild that he's having this moment here, because previously he has treated comprehensible input as if it were in itself a method rather than a key ingredient in numerous different approaches.
More traditional approach. When I say traditional, I mean just non-ALG, okay? When you look at pretty much every other approach, it's about understanding, right? Like, we still achieve understanding, we just do it in different ways. Maybe it's via, Anki, with flashcards, with...
But, I mean, that is fundamentally... Okay, he's already not understanding. Ironically, he has not achieved understanding as he talks about achieving understanding. Because the point is that the way we actually learn, the way we acquire language is when we understand messages. Your flashcard decks are not communicating with you. They're not actually telling you a thing.
Grammar study, like, that achieves understanding. It's just their way of achieving understanding is different.
Yeah, I mean, actually, like, that also does not achieve understanding. In fact, if you look at the research, one of the key points is that grammar study, it engages what is often referred to as the monitor, which is sort of this super ego of language use that sort of oversees the process and can help avoid mistakes sometimes. But mostly, like, grammar study, what it actually does is help you talk about the language. It is not actually how you acquire grammar.
20 years has shown many students, many cases where with large amounts of understanding, the experiences, the activities that go on, they're able to have an output that's both natural and fluent and very easily understood. And the whole aspect of practice is completely lost in this program. This puts the student at ease. We're not required to test them. All we're required to do as an organization, as a program here, is provide the students with the right kind of input. So
yeah, I mean, and this is another key thing that often gets lost in these discussions. The type of input matters, and making sure that it is actually being comprehended matters. There are different ways of doing that, but I mean, it is absolutely crucial in order to do a method that relies on comprehensible input to ensure that comprehension is happening.
We understand. If we can consider two aspects below the ground then of our program here at AUA, we are thinking about producing the best speakers possible. We're looking about becoming fluent in reading and writing.
Also, I want you to pay attention to how this is structured. Understanding leads to speaking. Once you've got speaking down, you lead to reading. Which, once you get that down, you lead to writing. Okay, I
mean, I don't actually think that is necessarily... I mean, maybe that's what he's doing, but I think the main point is that comprehension is the foundation of all these other things. That all those three things are output, and in order for you to be able to do any of those things, to provide meaningful output, there has to be the right kind of input to start out with.
It's the flow that they've got there. Again, this is another point where Dreaming Spanish Roadmap actually diverges, okay? Because if you look at the Dreaming Spanish Roadmap at 1,000 hours, and don't worry, we'll get into the hour...
Yeah, I mean, and one of the things that I would tend to disagree with is these arbitrary numbers of hours. Like, hours of input 600 gets you to level 5, where you can understand native speakers speaking to you normally. Well, I mean, that's going to depend on a lot of things. That's going to depend on how you engage with the input. I don't think you can necessarily say you can actually estimate this number of hours. Because it's going to depend on a lot of factors. If the language you're acquiring is related to one that you already know, the hours may actually be considerably less.
And everything, okay? this is where they actually where they recommend that you start both speaking and reading, which, if you were to apply the logic that they're applying here, is like once you've reached a certain point of understanding, then you start to speak, and once you reach a certain point of speaking, then you start to read. But from what I've noticed, most people who are trying to follow the pure method of ALG online, they actually go to reading before they go to speaking.
I mean, my understanding is that is actually discouraged by ALG, and very specifically by Dreaming Spanish. They want you to wait quite a while on reading.
Which isn't really following ALG.
Which is one of the things that I should note I disagree with ALG on, or at the very least Dreaming Spanish on. I think reading early is actually very useful. I mean, it can actually help you create the sort of linkages between the writing, what you're reading and what you're hearing, that can actually be really helpful further down the line.
So, like, if you were to actually follow ALG, you would go to speaking, get to a certain point of that, like a good point, then go to reading, which, if you're following the logic of ALG, actually makes sense, because once you're able to speak well enough, that means you know the most common words and how to say them. So when you start reading and the whole vocalization of the words on the page come out, you're going to vocalize them correctly, because the only time you're going to start speaking is when you're speaking with someone, the assumption is here, okay? And you're going to, in some way, inadvertently be corrected, either by the situation because the person won't understand you, or maybe they'll actually correct you, or, well, actually the ALG assumption is that by the time you start speaking, it just kind of rolls out naturally, but we'll get into that in a moment.
But there's an order here that must be made right. The common order in second language programs seems to be starting with an alphabet, learn to read and write, and then to practice words and practice and practice and practice.
I mean, that is certainly a lot of conventional approaches do that, especially if it's a new writing system for the people who are learning it. Like, if you're learning Russian as an English speaker and you have no experience of Cyrillic, then definitely one of the first things they do is start you on learning the alphabet, learning the azbuka.
Until we build up enough vocabulary to form sentences and so on. And the idea is that forms the basis for second language use. In our experience, the opposite is true. Our experience is that when we provide the student with large amounts of understanding, that forms the basis for all these other things to develop.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the really key points here is understanding. It's not just that you're being exposed to a whole bunch of input. It is that you are being assisted, in some cases, in digesting that input and understanding it. So you don't necessarily understand all of the words, so context is provided, visual context, whatever, in order to help you make sense out of what you're hearing. So it's not just that you are exposed to a whole bunch of input and that it's optimal input, but the result has to actually be understanding. And that is a crucial thing that gets lost in a lot of critiques as well. Because the understanding is what makes all this other stuff possible. The assumption a lot of the time, and if the input is optimal and is being engaged with in the right sort of a way, it's not an unsafe assumption, is that input and understanding are kind of one and the same in this context. But that isn't necessarily the case. Sometimes input is not as comprehensible as we think it is.
Way. We see this with young children at the age of 1 to 2 years old. Children develop naturally from a basis of understanding, and it develops into speaking. And later on, they learn to read and write. And so there's a natural process here that we want to replicate. The two elements of things here that we want to look at. Over here we'll say time, because later on as we look at what questions students...
okay, so it is actually meant to be a sequence here.
Yeah, so you can see he's added the line there to say, you know, you go from understanding to speaking to reading to writing. Okay, so that's where Dreaming Spanish...
Yeah, I mean, and the sequence of reading and writing does make sense here, because writing is the output of reading. Like, writing, once you have, You're not going to be able to write things in any meaningful way if you can't read them. You have to actually know what the writing means in order for writing to be anything other than copying down, scratches.
Again, diverges. They don't tell you that you should be starting with speaking and then at some point go to reading. Like, they're very clear about the input side of things, the understanding, but then they're just like, when you hit 1,000 hours, you just start speaking and reading. Now, they say you can start earlier and stuff, depending on if you speak already a similar language, but essentially they don't point out that there's a difference here, according to ALG. So Dreaming Spanish, like my Dreaming Spanish reviews, it's hard because they don't quite follow the ALG model. And
the other thing that is hard is they have really arbitrary numbers in terms of the number of hours of input, which again depends very much. You can expose yourself to hours and hours of stuff, but what is key in all of this is actually understanding it. So, that will sometimes mean going over it again.
And that's, like, I'm trying to test both.
Okay, how long does it take? How much understanding do I need? We'll come back to that in a moment. The other aspect here are abilities, if you will. The ability of the student you can edit that out, I'm sure.
I guess what he's trying to say here is that as your time increases with understanding, your ability with understanding increases.
The ability of the student is an important thing, but what must the student be able to do? In a traditional program where we're learning words from letters, we start with letters of the alphabet, we go to words and then phrases. Student ability is very important. One of my own personal experiences is I was not a very good language student. In fact,
yeah, a lot of people walk away from their experience in schools and universities of being taught languages and think exactly that. Well, yeah, exactly. There are some languages that really kind of only exist as written languages. And this does kind of fall apart there, just because you're dealing with just understanding a written record. You could probably acquire ancient Greek a lot better if, listening were, if there was a whole lot of comprehensible ancient Greek input. But
all of my English
with dead languages, that could be a bit of a problem.
Which were my first language classes. I could easily say it's my worst subject. Later on in school, I came into Spanish classes, and even in my life, I was surrounded by many Spanish-speaking friends. The Spanish classes were worse than English. Later on in school, I came into...
by the way, it just swapped to the second video in that series now, so we'll just jump ahead a little bit because...
Okay, and we're going to just take a little bio break. I will be back in just a couple of minutes. And again, I'm just going to drop those links to the crowdfunded translation project for reading the translations and everything in the chat before I go. Quick bio break, back in a mo. See you in a second. Hi, and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. I am Elise, translator, editor, and writer with 20 working languages, and this is where we talk about languages and language learning and all sorts of other stuff, and we play games. This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time. And we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks. Perfect. Okay, 3 of 4. 還元1級の先というのは本当に
誰も知らない字ばっかりでしょうね。私は。Okay, we've leveled up and it is time to pick another language. Mod för tröttare än vanligt. Maten är färdig. And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek. We're doing Greek when we get back. Benedetese. Her beautiful Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is alfil. And that actually comes from Arabic. Fil. The same word fil as this. Meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant units somehow. Similarly, in Russian, the word for bishop is skor, and that also means elephant. Okay.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time. And we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Ça, c'est ça, que c'est ça, non ça, c'est ça. Sol chi sa che nulla sa, ne sa più di chi ne sa. Ecco. Bienvenue à Hyper Polyglotting avec Élise. Moi, c'est Élise, traductrice, éditrice et écrivain avec 20 ans de travail. Et ça, c'est la transmission en direct ou en jeu des jeux. Surtout GeoGuessr en dernier temps. Et parle des langues, de la linguistique, de l'acquisition des langues. 10-159. Haven't made a huge dent in it, but we're getting there. Okay, gonna do some Chinese now. Nej. Nej. Man. Igen. Jo. 5. Ducks are drinking wine. Barbaz, okay, Barbaz is duck. Okay, I have now leveled up. Let's see what the XP situation is now. 10,340 out of 12,500. And as always, viewers can choose my next language for me just with a follow and a $5 to my Patreon. Sotto le frasche del capanno 4 gatti grossi stanno. Sotto 4 grossi sassi, 4 grossi e grassi gatti. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Facile. Sì, ecco, la gente... è la cosa che mi dice la gente, sempre che scopri che quante lingue parlo. Io sempre avevo l'impressione, diciamo, di che non era così, non era tan così, ma poi dopo di aver visto qualche poliglota in YouTube, una delle cose che avevo scoperte era giustamente che la metodologia usata da quella gente poliglota che non avevo mai conosciuta prima, era più o meno la stessa metodologia che usavo io. I buy a computer or what? Here's another example. I like to point these out. For this word for or, but and I'm back. Yeah, I mean, the importance of the actual understanding of the input really cannot be overstated here, because, like, if I just say to a room full of people who don't have any background in English, there is an anthropomorphic turnip outside, I mean, they can hear that, that's input, but unless I show them this turnip and somehow help them with the concept of anthropomorphic, this is it's just useless to them for language acquisition purposes.
Because for some reason they don't clip it perfectly.
In college, I actually began to study some ancient Greek.
Funny. So we were just had ancient Greek mentioned.
Language, a used language, isn't bad enough. Going into an ancient language is 10 times worse. It's not even used anywhere. And the amount of memorization and the amount of work and effort that goes into all of those classes, whether it's English, Spanish, Greek in my case, I think that the abilities that were required in those classes and the abilities we find necessary in a natural language acquisition class are completely different abilities.
He's not pointing out something here, okay? When you're learning a language at school, at least for me, when I was learning Japanese at school, we had one class a week. That was 1 hour a week, okay? Like, you're not...
Yeah, I mean, 1 hour and not necessarily 1 hour of, like, optimal input either.
Not going to learn a language like it's not even 52 hours a year, but fucking 45 hours a year. You can't do a comparison to their method, which requires hours of work per day. In fact, for them, they found the happy point to be around 6 hours.
So what abilities does a student need in order to develop natural language, whether it's Thai or English or what have you? The first ability for the student is very simple. And the amazing thing about these abilities is we all have them. The first ability will be to look. If we analyze, what is it?
I mean, we don't all have them. I mean, some people can't see. But barring that, yes.
Baby does in acquiring their native language. It's very simple. They look at everything. They're looking around and looking and just soaking in everything.
But I mean, what is also true is
thing they see. All right? It's a very simple ability. You have that ability, there's hope for you to gain a second language.
Because if the comprehending isn't happening, then you're not actually getting the full benefit out of the content in the first place. And then, I think he means expects in the sense of sort of requires it of students.
If you're not exposed to a language like Chinese, how will you ever be able to speak a language like Chinese? In our understanding...
Yeah, I mean, and this is one of the points that, a lot of people who are like claiming to critique comprehensible input or debunk comprehensible input, they just completely don't get, is that comprehensible input is an ingredient in all language acquisition methods. It is, it isn't just a method, it is just a thing that kind of making sense out of it from context and getting enough in there that you can kind of move on, move further. And maybe you don't start out with a perfect understanding of what exactly is being said, but you've got some sense of it. I mean, yeah, guessing is absolutely key. He's not wrong there.
Actually part of the ALG method. It's a fundamental, pillar of the method, okay? So often when people are like, oh, he's just guessing the meaning, based on his other languages or whatnot, and it's like, yeah, okay, I get what you're saying, that's helping me a lot. But other times I'll say, oh, he's just using, the image and figure it out and guessing it. That's actually how the method works. It's a guess method. That's what your brain is doing. It's just guessing constantly based on context.
Yeah, I mean, this is entirely accurate. This is, and that is a crucial aspect of all input-based methods. That people are, for the most part, guessing.
Forces us to have the exact correct answer in order to be right. Forces us to have the exact correct answer in order to be right. Of course, everyone knows being right is vital if you're going to learn anything. In fact, All modern research is seeming to point to the idea that we take in our brains way too much, and we have to shed out the stuff that turns out to not be right. Take in everything.
And I mean, is he actually doing the watching the Dreaming Spanish content just like live on stream? Because I feel like that may actually be harmful to the process on a certain level, because then you're having to perform. That's already putting some kind of additional stress on the situation that isn't really meant to be there, because you're trying to actually perform comprehending rather than just mentally going, yeah, okay, that kind of makes sense, got it, I think. And I think that might actually be impeding progress there.
Looking, listening, and guessing doesn't sound like much work. Where does IQ fit in? Learn to speak their native language. Young children learn to speak a second language naturally, efficiently, fluently. Why can't an adult? I believe the adult has gained some things that the child doesn't have.
I would say...
Yeah, and in fact, I mean, assuming that... What just happened? Am I still here? I seem to have lost my connection for a second, but it seems to be back. Chat, just let me know if I'm... if you're seeing me and stuff. Hopefully you are. OBS just decided to take a little break there for a second. Hopefully that is done. Hopefully things are better now.
In time, okay? So there's no way English is of any value to them. They will find a way in probably record time to speak.
Helpful as a lot of people think it might be. Immersion without any foundation turns out not to be a great approach.
So the fourth ability.
The fact that he's sort of performing comprehension, since he's doing this on, engaging with this content on stream or at least in videos, is potentially actually getting in the way of what he's doing, because the way he's like performing comprehension.
Wash over you, without worrying about what is this drop and where is it hitting me, and what does it mean when it hits. Just let the water wash.
Am I back? Okay, I decided to